Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me. I think to solve the sustainability problems we have ahead, we should definitely go for hydropower in the Sahara Desert. Said no one ever, of course, because that makes absolutely no sense. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that the business idea that I'm going to present is exactly as bad, just the opposite way around, going for solar energy very close to the North Pole, right? In some respects, you're right. Norway could be deemed to be one of the worst places on Earth for solar power. The solar installation isn't as great as in the Mojave Desert. Labor costs are high, and a lot of the cost with solar is installing the solar panels on roofs. And so your energy equation is going to be less beneficial here than closer to the equator and in high energy price and low labor cost countries. But if you want to make it in solar in these adverse conditions, you realize that you really have no time to waste. You need to be very efficient about how you use people's time, and that's the idea for our company. We saw these cost curves that I guess you've all seen with the price of solar panels falling. And to us, that doesn't just read as a cost curve or a revenue curve for the panel producers. It's, to us, it's a progress bar. That means that solar power will be competitive first in Karachi, and then in Athens, and then in Paris. And at some point, if those costs keep coming down, solar will be competitive even in the least sun-rich regions in the world. And that means solar power goes from being about cost to being about convenience. If you want to get solar power up on people's roofs, you need to help people solving a few problems. Most customers have no idea of what to expect if they get solar panels on their roofs. During this year, I guess we'll have roughly 100,000 people coming into Otovo page and checking out their address. And a lot of them will call us. And they'll call us and they'll ask questions like, will I be completely energy independent now? Completely forgetting the fact that the sun isn't up all year round and all day long. They'll be very let down when I'm saying that, well, you'll be able to cover somewhere between a fourth and half your energy consumption. You'll be exporting power in summer, and you'll be importing at night and in winter. They'll ask a lot of questions about snow loads. Do these panels resist, and can they sustain themselves in the Norwegian winter? And then we'll have to tell them that, yes, solar panels exist everywhere. They have them in space. They have them in the US Midwest, and they have them in the Alps, and they've tested them under very harsh conditions, but we need to educate them on these things. And then they'll ask, well, I've heard someone told me that it's not economical. And that may be right. If you live in Rjukan, which is a place in Norway that is in a deep ditch, you're quite a few decades away from solar profitability. But if your home is a south-facing, gently sloping roof on the southern coast of Norway, then putting solar panels on your roof will save you money on your electricity bill. And so this is something that is a very individual assessment. Grid parity is not, it's interesting if you're building a huge solar park, then you compete against the hydro dams. If you're building, in effect, something behind the meter that is akin to switching off your light to reduce your energy bill, then you have a very different equation, and it's an individual assessment on whether your consumption and your home is an economical place to put solar panels on. Then for installers, Norwegian electricians and roofers, they earn a lot of money doing their jobs. And they can also get healthy margins doing a lot of other things. And there's not like there's a lot of surplus labor in Norway. So they are very picky about how they use their time. So if you want to help installers get into the solar energy business, you need to be very efficient. They want to have stuff that's sold, where things are planned for them, and so they can use their time and their man hours efficiently. Same thing goes for banks. Getting banks to provide loans that make it possible for people to buy solar power, that's not something that's very easy in Norway. And I'd like to remind you of the fact that what really launched the car revolution was two things, not just Henry Ford's manufacturing lines, but the fact that someone invented the car loan. That meant that you could get the car and then you'd pay for the capex over time. That really boosted that energy, that technology. And we're seeing the same thing in the US, where the existence of solar leasing and solar loans boosted the solar industry to a much larger extent than in Europe, where the financial help for solar buyers isn't as strong. So you want to solve these things, and how are you going to do that? Well, the obvious answer is software. So our company has created a platform that tries to provide value for customers by being a trusted e-commerce site where you can go in and check your address on otovo.no, get an individual assessment of what solar power means on your location, what's in it for you in terms of money, what's in it for you in terms of environmental impact, how much CO2 will you save the European grid. And it'll make it easy for you where you don't have to do all the applications towards government. You won't have to source the equipment yourself, and you won't have to look for different installers because we've got those installers in our database, and we'll provide the one that's going to be the cheapest for you in your specific location. Behind the scenes, we have contracts with installers that have pre-quoted all combinations of homes based on driving distance, roof slope, the orientation of the house, the amount of scaffolding you'll use. And because in Scandinavia we have these fantastically open APIs with all the building data is registered, we don't have to recognize a house from satellite data. We know exactly the measurements of all houses in Norway. So you can be very precise when you get an installer to do a job. He won't be coming with a scaffolding that's 1 meter too short. Even if it's never been there and never measured, you can send him a job description where he'll get there with the right equipment. And we provide value to financiers. So we have a back end where we allow people either to pay in cash through their bank and register themselves with bank ID, or we provide customers for banks who want to finance solar. And they've been very happy to see that solar energy in Scandinavia, it's something for the rather well-to-do suburbs. We see that we're selling more in Asker and Bærum and Oppegård than in less well-to-do neighborhoods. But that's good for the banks. They can see that the early movers in this market, they have low credit risk, and that increases the appetite for the banks to provide loans. And so we're in this thing where we don't have to compete against every meter, against in every aspect of the energy market. We want to convince the person who has a home in a place where there's a lot of sun, with a house that's going to be inexpensive to install solar panels, and who will get a high credit score. He's going to be, or she is going to be, the first person who will get solar profitability on their roof. And then, as costs come down, as efficiency goes up, there'll be not only one of those, there'll be 100, then there'll be 100,000, and then there'll be 1 million. So we're building a software where people can input their address. They get an assessment of their specific roof. They get a description of what's in it for them. We have a back office where we can select all. We create a 3D model of the house where you can select all the areas of the roof. People can sign and buy online and get a bank loan. And then as we install a lot of systems, we're at roughly 475 sales so far. Then we're getting a lot of energy producing assets around in Norway. And we can use that to create a power company where we buy the surplus power for people, and we sell it to people who want an element of solar in their energy bill. So we've also created a utility called Otovo Neighborhood Power, and that's something that we'll be emphasizing more as we go. To wrap up, I'd say that our view is that if we can make it here, then we can make it anywhere. And I'm not going to sing that song for you, but which would be great entertainment, I guess. But our view is that if you can make solar profitable on homes in Norway, where you're competing against clean energy, you're competing against low-priced energy, and you're competing with super high cost, then you're building a system that's so smart that you can bring it out to other countries and have a tremendous competitive edge. So we're getting ready for launching in new markets, and hopefully we won't be made fun of as the guys who want to do hydropower in Sahara. Maybe it's best to start in the hardest place. We'll be battle-hardened as we go into these countries. Thank you very much.